Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out at Night. Mostly, I am Graveyard, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 32 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. And, how far does the apple really fall from the tree? We'll be discussing the works of Brandon Cronenberg today, who is the son of, I'd say, the legendary body horror ride director David Cronenberg. And for all those interested who want to, hear what we discussed about some of his works, we only did 4 of them last time, but that was episode 18 of our podcast. So make sure to check that out as well. But how do Brandon's movies compare to his father's? Let's go ahead and discuss that today. And we'll be discussing 3 movies, because there's only 3 movies of Brandon so far. We have Antiviral, which came out in 2012. Possessor came out in 2020. And then Infinity Pool, which just came out, end of 2022, beginning of this year?
Yeah, it was not too long ago.
Yeah. So we'll do a normal thing, our recaps, first thoughts. Some of these movies are our first time seeing them. Spoilers ahead for Infinity Pool for anyone that hasn't seen it. So go ahead and make sure you watch that before listening to the last part of our podcast here. And out of 10 this week, we'll be doing number of needles under the skin out of 10, because let's face it, that seems to be Brandon's kind of MO in a lot of these movies.
Well, yeah, close-ups and things entering flesh, yes.
Yeah, and yeah, more real. I'd say more realistic body horror than some of the stuff from the 80s, but we'll discuss that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to start off with, we have Antiviral. And honestly, I didn't recall seeing anything about this movie when it came out. Do you?
No, I don't remember it either. I know I read about it because I had watched Possessor because I heard good things and I watched it and I really liked it. So I was like, yo, Brandon Cronenberg, or that's kind of cool. I wonder what else he's done. And I looked and I saw that. I'm like, Antiviral, interesting. I never heard of it. So I read a little bit of the plot, but I never actually watched it at that time. So this is the first time I actually watched it, but I did hear of it before. But as far as marketing goes, around that time, nothing.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. Possessor, obviously, Infinity Pool, yes, as well. But yeah, Antiviral just kind of flew under the radar for both of us, which is pretty interesting, especially you being a Cronenberg fan. But we saw that Infinity Pool is coming out, and we go, you know what? We have a trilogy then. That's good enough for an episode, so that's why we waited for Infinity Pool to come out before discussing, Brandon's works. All right, so Antiviral, I think they said it's a very near future, I would say.
I would also probably go out on a limb and say this is probably an alternate Earth,
which Possessor is as well.
Yeah. Possessor could fit into our world a little bit easier than this could, because this is kind of a whole change in the mythos of celebrity in society.
Right, and when we get to the point, I just want to discuss, this seems, if watching it in 2023 and how accurate we are obsession with our celebrities and the stuff they're doing in this movie, fairly accurate for today's time. But, 11 years ago was just at the very cusp of what they're talking about in this movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
The science behind things, let's say.
Right, yeah, so I would say near future in an alternate is what I would say.
Yeah, let's go with that. So anyway, we are, man, I can't remember his name. He says it all the time too.
Sid
Pitch
March.
Sid March.
Yeah.
For all, we introduced to Sid March, who kind of has a sexual fantasy with flowers and this big celebrity in this world, not in our world, but in this world. And for all's wondering, yes, he does look familiar. He is Banshee in X-Men First Class, and he plays the brother in Jordan Peele's Get Out. So I saw him he looks familiar, and I look him up, of course, because you go down the IMDb rabbit hole for who is that person? Why they look so familiar? And yeah, so we just kind of see him smoking outside, I'd say, a giant billboard. And, we're introduced to a very, very sterile office in the waiting room of people looking at celebrity magazines. And my initial thought was, oh, they're here to do plastic surgery to look more like their favorite celebrities, which is a thing, unfortunately, in our world right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are trying to look like Angelina Jolie or Kim Kardashian or whoever.
That weird guy that tried to look like Justin Bieber. Did you ever see that guy?
Yeah.
Or the cat lady. Like cat.
Yes. And immediately you're kind of just, I'd say, disdained for him. He seems very much like a slime ball.
Well, he's a salesman. So it depends on how you feel about salesmen giving sales pitches.
Slime ball.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. That's accurate. I'm just saying, if you're a salesman, you probably wouldn't think so.
Right. But he's kind of just, very, very nicely dressed, and he's talking to a patient about getting something from a celebrity. So it's almost like if the celebrity gave it to you, it would be on actually the left side of your mouth. And he just then sticks a needle, you see, like right under inside of the lip. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna hold it there. And then you'll see this in about, what he said, like a month-ish to a couple of weeks.
Something like that.
And I immediately go, he's getting herpes.
Wow. Herpes simplex 1, yes.
Yes. I go,
and his selling point was, once we give it to you, you'll have it forever.
Right, and don't worry, you can't pass it on either.
Right.
Which they go more into detail later on in the movie as the why of everything. And we kind of just realized that you find out that they are a marketing company that will give you diseases from actual celebrities. So you can feel like you got your favorite celebrity's disease, like they personally gave it to you. So like part of their sickness is now inside of you. Obviously, like I said, this herpes, and we see this culture very obsessed with essentially TMZ getting pictures of like, underskirt shots and, oh, what condition does this celebrity have with our X-ray cameras, and like, let's talk about their anuses and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, getting their sickness again is a step beyond where we're at. And also the next stage of this, which is like the next scene here is one step beyond that, I would say.
But it's stuff we're actually discussing like literally this year in science.
I'm sure you can discuss it in science. I'm just saying it would be a long stretch for us as a normal thing for that to happen.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's some freaky people out there that would love that to happen. But as far as like a business being able to be run on that premise, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're going to be there for a while.
I hope not.
Well, I'm not saying we won't be. I mean, again, the tracks are laid to go that direction, but who knows if we will. But again, I don't think it'll be for a while. And again, the near future of that world where they're at, that's why I say alternate Earth, because we may get there, but I think if we get there, we'll be further along than this world would be. I think this world started on that celebrity train earlier. So I think it's probably about the same timeline as us, only they started on their technology earlier. Because it feels like about a present day technology level, just if they concentrated on different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see him talking to, some of his coworkers that are engaging in the painful office talk that exists. We've experienced this. It is quite painful. I think Derek looked very sick.
Yeah.
He looked very, very sick. And it shows what happens at the end of the workday is they get scanned like, are you taking any pathological viruses with you? No. And they just go, okay. I'm like, well, that's not much of a
again
scan.
Well, okay. Well, I guess suppose you could go into the a little bit more of the detail of it so it makes more sense. Is that one, you get injected with this, and they have like this clinic has patents on not only certain celebrity sicknesses, but on the sicknesses themselves.
Right.
Because they kind of recombine them into being a version of the virus that will give you the same sickness that the celebrity had, but it is not transmissible.
Right. That way you can't give it away for free or people pay you. It's copyrighted.
Right. Yeah, so that's like their whole business model is you get the sickness that the celebrity had, but it's only for you. And if somebody else wanted it, they could go to that clinic and get the same sickness. But again, you'd have to pay for it. And I guess the way that they do that is so like, as far as him, if he doesn't try to smuggle out the vial of the sickness to them, it doesn't really make sense, right? To care if you're actually physically sick or not, because even if you are, that means you're just stealing a little bit from them and then dealing with the sickness at home. Again, to them, since they own that patent, you're not going to transmit it. It's still not good, right? I mean, it's still like they still wouldn't want you to do that. But as far as searching you when you're leaving the building, that makes more sense. That way they wouldn't care that much, right?
Right. So yeah, the next thing that we're talking about then is he goes to a celebrity meat market.
Well,
and what we mean by that,
hold on. There's the one thing that happens first. Is that where he injects himself? Well, he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's really sick and has a fever and everything, and he sticks that swab into his nose,
all the way into his nose,
all the way. Yeah, so he's like taking a deep sample of that virus, and he puts it in a vial, and then he puts it in his fridge, and then the next day when he goes to this meat market, he brings that with him to sell. So he's like black market trying to sell these diseases. That he's stealing from work.
Yes, and his apartment's very sterile, and he has nothing but, packaged deli sandwiches and orange juice. That's his life. But the celebrity meat market is, and this is why I find it interesting. They discussed this. It was probably about 10 years ago, where you can, take animal cells and then start growing steak out of it. Therefore, no animals were actually killed. But in this world, it's humans and it's celebrity that donate their DNA, not donate, they sell their DNA and their cells to be able then to buy steak of, Angelina Jolie, but in this world, like Hannah, whatever her name is, right?
Geist.
Hannah Geist. I think it's funny because we just had the article saying that you can grow your own cells into a steak. Like that came out this year. And like I said, I know they talked about this probably about 10 years ago, about this time frame in the movie, and they kind of took it to the next progression up in this celebrity infatuated world. And he deals with, I don't know if I call him a butcher, like it's a laboratory, really.
He's a fixer.
He's a fixer.
If you know what a fixer is in the criminal world.
But yeah, he's trying to smuggle stuff out from his work to be able to then uncopyright it so he can sell it on the black market, because even in this world there's black market stuff for this shit,
right? Yeah, and the way that they patent their viruses, they have like a special machine that can it basically looks at the DNA of the virus and then it gives it like a face, which is bizarre, but that face is then what is copyrighted. So like the virus itself has like a face, and that's what they do. But anyway, the machine that does that is a highly regulated and proprietary machine. And he has somehow gotten a black market version of one that he hides in a false closet that he has.
Right. And he's smuggling stuff out, and he's taking his own blood to then uncopyright it. He knows how to copyright it, but getting it taking off the copyright protection is what he's working on, essentially, to figure out what's going on here and just to make a shit ton of money. He's talking to the fixer / butcher / lab grown meat scientist. He's like, I can't believe the government hasn't declared this as cannibalism, because that meat, first off, looks disgusting.
Well, yeah, it's like even when it's fresh, it's gray.
It's gross. It's like a slab of pork belly, but gray.
Yeah, it looks like if you took
pig skin.
If you took like a big wad of beef and then boiled it. So it's got that white gray texture to it, and that's what it looks like.
Right, and we kind of see this guy who cuts it up. He puts slabs in some sort of cell formula to help multiply them, right? So that's how you multiply it. That's how you get more of it. He's also growing, it looks to be organs, human organs. On top of that, something else that he's working on.
Yeah, it's something he's growing. Yeah, essentially he's like growing cells over like some kind of structure to like try to make it into a shape or something.
Right. Yeah. He's saying that, how far away from just growing the celebrities themselves as a whole.
Right.
So yeah, he's talking about, it's like, I got this just came in for you. He's like, oh, my other guy gave it to me. He's like, we just got this. Oh, he got it first. Right. So, he's doing that. Then after his coworker is arrested, right? So he has this sickness.
Right. Well, Derek, the guy that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Derek is the guy that actually, like, when Hannah Geist, the celebrity girl, gets sick, he's the guy that goes and like takes the blood sample to bring back to the office to get copyrighted and configured. But yeah, he gets arrested because they find a black market machine, just like Sid has. They found a black market machine in his house, so they arrest him and he's gone to jail.
Right.
So then, when he goes back to work, they find out that Hannah is sick again, but since this Derek guy is gone, now he gets to go and take the blood from her.
Which I would say that he is obsessed with Hannah as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fair statement.
He goes there and he's like blind, with a sleeping mask on. Takes the blood, and once he takes it, and then he injects himself quickly with some of the blood. Before he brings it into his work. I think they said there's two, because of the Cooler talked about another company that also does this. And as you said earlier, they have copyrights on diseases, let alone specific celebrities and their diseases as well. So if they we have the rights to Hannah and anything Hannah gets, well, another company wants to get Hannah's stuff, she's copyrighted essentially at this point in time by the company that Sid works at.
Right.
He's trying to go through the console and he's watching it. He's watching all these faces. And then we kind of get I'd say the most like his dad's body horror in that scene where he starts having the pipes come out of him, his mouth with the grill over it. Starts having hallucinations and stuff like that. I'm like, okay. That is a Cronenberg.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'm like, that is Cronenberg. But then he passes out. Rightfully so. I'm like, oh no, he's his entry to his equipment's open, and all of a sudden there's people knocking on the door, trying to look for him, but he's he tells his landlord, I'm just tired, I'm just sick. She goes, okay. And they knock the door, no answer, and they walk away. And then he wakes up the next morning as well after that and discovers that Hannah's dead from whatever she has. No one knows what it is, but she's dead. And he's like, oh shit, I injected myself with this.
Right. And it's like a twofold thing. One, I'm probably going to die. Right. Yeah. I injected myself with this thing. And two, I'm incubating a gold mine. Right.
Yes.
Because people are going to want this thing. So yeah, he's walking that tightrope of what do I do?
Yeah, I am very valuable.
Right. Yeah. So he goes to the fixer guy, but he doesn't tell him that he has the sickness, but he is very obviously sick.
Oh, very much so. Right. He's walking with a cane now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's very, very sick.
Within a day of injecting himself.
Yeah.
So he goes there. His machine with this.
Well, his machine
breaks.
Yeah. So he goes to the fixer to get the part of the machine, and then that's when he forwards him to this guy.
Yeah. He's like, oh, Levine, he is my guy. I know him very well. And they go through this back, a fixer would take you, and he sees like Hannah on the screen, but it's like almost her memory imprinted onto like a closed loop of a T screen, of a monitor that you can command her to do things. So almost like, okay, they're working on like taking the consciousness of the celebrities and inputting it into something to be able to tell a celebrity to do whatever you want them to do.
Well, yeah, essentially, here's what they did. They just took a deep fake of that celebrity and put it on one of those weird Japanese dating porn sims.
Yeah.
That's essentially what they did.
Right. But anyway, he meets up. He goes, "Hey, it's $80 the part. I don't have it. It'll take about a week. Oh, by the way, I'll take your sample now." He goes, "What? What do you mean?" And like he tries to leave, and this dude is huge in comparison to him. Like Sid's scrawny as hell.
Yeah, he's arguably the scrawny. Yeah, well, he's obviously the scrawniest guy in the whole movie, and he's like walking with a cane because he's so sick.
Right.
So yeah, he gets this shit beat out of him.
Yeah, and he gets like that mole remover, like that hole cutter from his gnarly rash he has on his arm.
Yeah, because he has a rash on his arm. They're like, take a sample of that. We might need it.
Right. I'm like, I don't know how you tell what's not his freckles, not it's the rash at that point. And they took like 10 vials of blood from him as well.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of drop him off in the middle of the street after he loses consciousness. He wakes up in the diner, starts ordering just a coffee, and then he's approached by two guys who strangely ordered calamari. I looked at that diner and go, no, I would never order calamari.
Okay. Well, calamari is one of those things for me is that when it's done like well, it is very good, and I enjoy it very much. When it is done badly, I despise it. It is disgusting. It's one of those things that I will not order simply because the chances of it being bad are too high. And I don't want to roll those dice. I would rather have anything else. Yeah, that place, no. There's no way.
No way in hell that place is good calamari.
Well, it's okay, to be fair, it's just a hole in the wall diner place. But like a hole in the wall diner place, you don't order calamari from a hole in the wall diner place.
You want to get sick.
Right, yeah. So you go to that place and you order like, a turkey melt or a burger or something. You don't get
a greasy spoon. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's approached by two guys, and I thought maybe it's detectives the first time they tried looking for him because they, his boss had called him in, so another machine was missing from her inventory. It's an older model, but there's two missing. Derek took one. Let me know if you hear anything. And obviously Sid has this other machine.
Right.
And then we see that he's being driven somewhere, and Hannah's actually alive. Barely, but actually alive. Like her death was fake because, they think her agent that this was an assassination attempt. And they drug poor Malcolm McDowell into this movie. I heard his voice. I'm like, oh, you poor man.
You poor man. It's all
about. No, I like Cronenberg and I like Malcolm McDowell, but it's such a small part for him.
Yeah, he gets to play like the smart guy. He doesn't get beat up or killed, so I guess that's a plus.
That's fair. It doesn't have a mute guy screaming die at him.
Fair.
But her doctor goes, we don't know what the hell this is. Like, we need you to help us figure out what this is. And, we're going to use you to figure out what this is. We're not going to experiment all this crap on her. It's like some mutated disease. And, then he talks to Hannah. She's bleeding from mouth. She's like, have you started bleeding yet? He goes, what? No. But he says, he's like, hey, I can help you out. This is I can help you out because I have the sickness. He's like, oh, you're just another fan, right? So essentially then they put him in like, I have something we can work out, and put him in a room essentially with Levine's part of this, a rival company essentially, right?
Well, yeah, but that's a little bit later. First, Because first, they goes there, they tell him like, okay, you got to find out what's going on. This was an engineered virus that was made to kill her.
Yeah.
The only thing we know about it is that it was based on this other virus, and it's one of the viruses. Yeah, one of the viruses patented by that company that they sell as a flu. It was an older virus that they don't use anymore because I guess there's a better one on the market or something, whatever it is. So he goes back to his office to do research on it, and he finds out that the last person to take out a sample of that was Derek. Yes. And then he goes back to Derek's place that's already been looked over by the cops and everything because they already found that machine. And he goes over everything, and he ends up finding a secret compartment inside of his fridge, which is very similar to the one that he already has. And so he pulls it out, and there's like a vial, but it's got like a weird computer chip in it. And so he brings it back to his place because his machine is now fixed, and he hooks up this machine to his or the vial to his machine, and it basically is like an interface to build a weaponized virus. So it says like, "Hello, Derek. Like, how would you like to kill someone today?" I mean, it doesn't say that, but essentially that's what you get out of it, right? Like, this is a virus that you can program to kill someone. So they know that Derek did it. So he goes back to them and he shows them, here's the thing that I found. This was definitely made to kill them. We know it's this other company. What else can we do? And then that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he gets essentially go there, they discover that, they're talking about like the loophole, right? The head of the other company goes, well, if we make this disease and we give it to her, it's our disease. We don't patent, we can't copyright her or the diseases that she currently has, but our disease, it's a fancy loophole because now it's us.
Right.
They're just trying to get her as a client while she's dying. Very, very
right. Yeah, and then they get there and they're like, "Oh yeah, that would have been good if we could have used it, but like she's too far along. She's gonna die before we formulate this thing."
But best of luck to you.
Yeah, but best of luck to you. And Sid is like, well, he doesn't say it, but it's implied that he also has it, and they really don't give a shit. Like the lady literally says, like, "Yeah, you injected yourself, so you're not really part of our concern." And he just kind of accepts.
It's not. It's not our company's fault that you did it.
Right.
So we have no responsibility for what you did, what happens to you.
So like, us coming up with a cure is good for Hannah because we can make money off of it. But if she's going to die anyway, we don't care about you. You're worth nothing.
Right.
And then that's when this whole secondary thing with Levine happens because they're trying to like make their money back anyway.
Right, because they found out that the public was, quote, cheated out of her last moments of life.
Mm-hmm.
And now they can videotape Sid's last moments of life to help embrace and have the fans connected to Hannah so they can understand it. So it's essentially a reality TV show. He just starts getting worse and just starts, coughing up blood.
Well, yeah, he's essentially
like chocolate syrup looking blood.
Yeah, he's like locked in a prison cell. And all four walls of the prison cell are giant pictures of Hannah Geist's face.
Yeah.
And he's just like there in a white suit and a white bed with a white floor, just like puking up blood and dying slowly.
Right.
And then Levine guy keeps like coming in and saying, "So how do you feel?"
Right. And like recording all of this, this is how we're making our money. And, he picks up blood, smears it all over makes mustaches for Hannah on some of the pictures.
Right.
And just when seemingly, I'd say about dead, it seems like, blood like pulling out of him. Levine comes in and he just, another needle just jammed right into his like gums.
Yeah. It's like in his gums, but like up, like his nose. It looks like it's extremely painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and he realizes that he gets out of there. He realizes he's in the rival company. So it's Levine was working, the pirate. He's, pirate, like black market bootleg movies and stuff like that. But sickness is, that he's happens to be at this place. He goes, I have a deal for you that you're not going to want to miss. Right. And essentially then he comes back, he's wearing a dress, his suit again, and he's a technician working at this other company, and they have, here is the afterlife marketing that we do for Hannah. Like, you can inject essentially any disease into her, and he can contract it through her. It's like, oh, we have technology to do this, and it's because of the fixer, the meat market guy who's growing these organs, and they kind of show that there's organs inside of like an iron lung essentially.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure they used an old iron lung for the demonstration just because you can get an old iron lung. But yeah, I think it was supposed to be futuristic equipment, right?
Yeah, so even after her death, because she's dead, you can get new viruses from her. Any disease you want, you can go through her system, so it's like she had it, and then give it to her. Then he kind of, cuts the fake arm open and starts drinking the blood. And then her face is there in the cell chamber, so he's cured, and he's as a new technician at the rival company.
Yeah, and she's her. I mean, you can see like half of her face is normal, and the other half of it looks like the weird structures that were at the meat market guy's place, where like the flesh is growing into new shapes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And the movie.
Correct.
So we'll go into our first thoughts as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought, I thought this was going to be, I don't know what I was expecting, because this is the first one of Brandon Cronenberg's movies I've ever seen. I expected it to be more body horror-ish, like more of his dad's works, but he does take it. He's more surgical in it, but still very sexual in a lot of stuff, just like his dad is too, with the whole body horror and sex mingling.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This movie, there's not any like actual sex. It's more like the disease sharing with celebrities is kind of like a weird stand-in for sex almost. Yeah. And then like the whole like people eating the celebrity steaks is like a weird stand-in for it. It's kind of bizarre how that works, but yeah, so there's not a whole lot of actual sex, but there is, that stuff is really kind of shown to be a stand-in for it. Like looks like they get like the same weird pleasure out of
it. Right. And it's more surgical body horror than anything else. I think it's a very common theme in his stuff. And it's a common theme in David's new stuff too, though, right?
Right. Yeah. Crimes of the Future was that, but Crimes of the Future is again, it's a lot closer to standard David Cronenberg body horror than this one is. This one is more like a sterile, like, surgery type thing on a normal like body, right? It's like normal medical things that happen. I mean, obviously, at the end she's like made into new shapes, and there was like his weird dream in there, like you said earlier, that had the tubes coming out of him with the weird like vent mouth with the blood coming out. Yeah, it's like those are definitely callbacks to like to his dad's work. But I think his work I feel like moves in its own direction. But he's got that surgical feel to it.
Yes, his is more surgical, which is, I'd say, our new body horror and stuff, like the weird extremes obviously we get from Videodrome, stuff like that. And I like the fact that he still has the same interests and writing styles and stuff like that his dad has, but he has his own signature style, I think, we see throughout these movies.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, but again, this one you can see the influence, and this is his first movie. I mean, that's fair. I mean, where did he get most of his inspiration or experience from? Was obviously from his dad. So that this has kind of an homage or even like a a scene that's very reminiscent of his dad is not surprising at all. But I think it goes in his own direction, and I think he did a good job. I like it. I think it's good.
Yeah. Any other first thoughts on that? I mean, this is your first time watching it too. The under the radar thing that we somehow missed.
Right. Well, again, I as I always do, I spend a whole lot of time thinking about, is this our Earth, or is this could this possibly happen in our? Because again, I was like looking at the technology that they have available with almost everything else except for, the people stakes and the patented viruses, and I look at everything else, and everything else is pretty much akin to what we have. But we have some pretty advanced technology in certain areas. But I think that's when I came to the conclusion, like, this is an alternate Earth that's set in the same present time that we have. It's just that at some point in the past, people became obsessed with celebrities, and as fad celebrity things happen.
I mean, yeah, we're discussing the whole meat market thing, how it's parallel to our own world, and we discussed that you just had to think of this being a alternate world, technology wise, and stuff like that. But like I said, especially with the stuff we're thinking about of growing, you can take your own cells and make steak. That doesn't sound appealing to me. I don't know about you.
I mean, no, I mean, again, it doesn't sound appealing to me, and it definitely doesn't look appealing, because they had like the whole meat counter, right?
Yeah.
And it was like all the pieces of meat looked like that nasty white gray.
Yeah. Yeah. That was disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't want any part of that. But there was people in there like trying to buy like a roast size thing. You know what I mean? Like it was not cool. It was gross.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our highlights of this movie. Highlights for me, like I said, the guy needs to eat more than just orange juice and a sandwich. He is a skinny dude.
I'm pretty sure he's just a slightly built dude. I don't have even if he put on poundage, I don't think he would look bigger.
No, but highlights though, and like I said, for Brandon's first movie, and I think the story was good, and I think it was a great dark satirical take on our obsession with celebrities. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, but we are obsessed with celebrities, and this does seem like the next logical step in some alternate world. And I like that. His dad also had satirical takes on the whole, video boob tube stuff. And it's nice that he's continuing that as well. So, yeah, the highlight stuff for me is definitely the story and the idea behind it, because it seemed very Black Mirror-ish before Black Mirror really came out. And I just, I was excited to start watching then the other two of these in the hope that he continues down this trend that his dad kind of trendsetted, and that he will be able to continue on his own take of the satirization of our society. And I think it works really well for this movie. What about highlights for you?
I like the just the kind of setup of the movie. I mean, it's almost like I said, like a near future, like noir, with all the kind of twists and turns and double dealings and backstabs and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it really feels like kind of like a weird noir story, but almost like like I said, like a future, like a minimalist future neo noir is kind of what
THX 1138 almost.
Yeah, sort of similar, sure.
Okay. Any other highlights though? I mean, do you think the acting was like I said, everything seemed shady, and I think everyone did a good part of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's no, I mean, everybody did a great job. I wouldn't say anybody did a phenomenal job, but everybody did a great job. But there was no like bad acting in this movie at all. I mean, it was pretty solid all around, I thought. I mean, it was decently done. So, I mean, it seems to be able to hold his own as a director. So,
yeah. Low points for me. Some of the vagueness of the diseases was a little offsetting, but I think those kind of just idea to be able to insert disease name here type world. And if he was supposed to be a tough guy, I didn't find that believable, because like he goes against like the bouncer at Levine's place. I'm like, there's no way in hell, even if he was healthy, he was going to do anything to that guy.
No, he was just trying to leave. I mean, at that point, he didn't have much choice,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they strong-armed him into that. Like, he in no way would have. Because before that point, he thought that he was hiding the fact that he had her disease. Right? He didn't know that, the fixer guy had figured it out, that he had it. And that was the payment for getting the part to his machine. He didn't know that. He thought he was like, he thought he was like, pulling a fast one on everybody. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to get my machine fixed. I'm going to get this thing marketed. I'm going to be a rich man. Right.
Right.
And so that was the point where like everybody knew his plans already and then totally turned on him. So yeah, he was doing the only thing that he could, which was just try to leave, because at that point he had, lay down and let them do whatever they want, or try to save some dignity and at least attempt to leave.
Yeah,
and that's what he did.
Do you wish that he got some sort of revenge on the Fixer?
He probably did. At some
I wish
way.
they would have shown it though.
Well, what probably happened? Fixer's just being a fixer, man. I mean, that's just that's what fixers do. Fixers are always looking for the new game. They're always looking to one up on everybody. That's essentially what keeps them in the business.
Right.
So if they find out, again, he gave him the chance to be honest with him.
Yeah.
Like, he went in there, he was very sick, and he's like, do you have that sickness? I know you were one of the last people to be with her. You're sick now. Is this the sickness that you have? Because if this is what you have, this is the Holy Grail, and I will pay you Holy Grail prices. So, like, he was very open and honest, like saying, hey, you give this to me, I will give you a lot of money. But no, Sid decided to play it on his own. And at that point, again, honor among thieves kind of thing.
Business is business.
Yeah, business is business. If you're going to straight up lie and say, no, like, this is my own thing, but then you're still going to ask him for your help anyway. Yeah. I mean, again, he's playing against the criminal rules by, trying to screw over everybody. Well, I mean, what was he going to give that guy for payment?
I have no idea.
Right. You know what I mean? Again, like, what did he think was going to happen? I mean, obviously he was sick and probably not thinking straight, but like, what did you think was going to happen in that room?
Yeah.
So yeah, now the Fixer was just being his Fixer. I mean, the Fixer didn't beat him up. The Fixer didn't attack him. The Fixer's just a businessman. Yeah. And at the end, he went towards him, and said like, hey, we have this opportunity. I came up with this idea. They probably gave him some kind of fee. But again, did the Fixer get what he thought he deserved? Absolutely not.
No.
Because Sid was the guy, he was the idea man. He was the one that sold it to the company. He's getting a major share of that. The Fixer's getting a little bit of nothing. Right? I mean, he's getting enough to be involved, but he's not getting what he thought he was going to get by stealing the Holy Grail from him.
And concerning he took his technology, what he was doing, I would assume there had been a cutscene somewhere where he got his hands on that to be able to take it from him.
I don't think
he took it. Like a corporate FU to him.
I don't think they took it. I think they paid him for it. But again, they paid him for it. Again, they're giving him a taste, right? They're like, hey, how much would it be for us to use this technology? Oh, it'll be $100,000. And meanwhile, they make $1 billion off of it, right? So like, yeah, you get a little bit of money, but you're not getting that cut of what you think you deserve.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he would get out, but he would still be doing the small time stuff. He would still be having to sell celebrity steaks on the side because he's, that is not enough money to live on, not enough money to retire on.
Right. What are your low points then, if any?
I mean, low points is just how gross that meat looked. I can't imagine anyone eating that because they even had a scene where he cooked it and was eating it, and it looked exactly the same. I mean, That's like, oh. I've seen like disgusting, like boiled red meat that looked just like that. And it was like one of the worst tasting things I've ever had in my life. And the texture was so bad.
Well, I mean, that's why ketchup was invented. It was to cover rancid meat.
Oh my God. It's so disgusting. So yeah, I just like that turned me off. I'm just like, I have no doubt that people would probably buy celebrity steaks if it looked like normal meat. But that does not look like normal meat. I don't know. Maybe it was like tofu or something. I don't know what it was, but it looked gross.
That it did. I would never walk into meat market, saw that, and go, no, thanks, I'm good.
I know that, but I don't like sickness. Like, I don't want to ever get sick, so I can't imagine how anyone would like deliberately make themselves sick. But I also don't get the whole celebrity worship thing. So, I mean, maybe that ties into that. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that do this weird, insane stuff to like try to feel closer to their celebrities and stuff. And I don't get it. But I mean, maybe those kind of people would feel this. I don't know.
I'm sure if it existed, people would do it in our world.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. There would be some people. All right, so let's get into our number of needles under the skin, or through faces essentially.
Right.
Out of 10. You know, for me, this is a pretty solid first outing. Very solid first outing for a new writer and director. Like I said, I just wish I knew about this honestly when it came out. But I mean, overall, it was definitely a decent watch. So I'm giving a 7.5 needles on the skin out of 10. How about you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same exact number. I was gonna give it a 7.5 because it's up there. Like I would rewatch it, but I would want to put it just a tad bit above just the rewatch. Like
Yeah,
it was decent. Like I would rewatch it again. With a smile, kind of thing.
right. That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, then our next movie is Possessor.
Mm-hmm.
Salem, why don't you go ahead and take that one away?
Sure. So the movie opens to where a young girl is going to be a hostess for a restaurant, like a fancy restaurant. And she's with the other hostesses, and they're kind of preparing for work. And so like the one just seems kind of sort of distracted, who's obviously like the main character. And then they go up the elevator to this fancy restaurant. As they go in, the one character kind of like hovers by like the buffet table, by like the steak knives, and then kind of moves into the restaurant, goes up to, like a bigger guy, obviously a well-to-do guy, and just starts stabbing him. I mean, just stabs him right in the neck at first, and he goes down pretty quick, and then she just starts stabbing. A lot. There's blood like everywhere. I mean, they show her like starting to like slip around in the blood. Like that's how much blood is there. It's a lot.
Oh, there's easily 25 stabs.
Right. And then like obviously the guy is dead. There's blood everywhere. So she drops the knife and then she pulls a pistol out of her bag. Yes. And then says, "Pull me out," in like the kind of like this weird robot voice. And then puts the gun in her mouth, like she's going to pull the trigger. But you can tell there's like some kind of like weird like hesitation, like, pulling the gun like out of her mouth and then back in a little bit and then out again. And then the police come in and then like pointing the gun at the police, and then the police shoot her and she dies.
Well, we did get a brief thing of her, the woman putting like a needle into her head and turning a dial and going through like a range of emotion.
Oh, right. Yeah. There was that. Yeah. So yeah, she was like, as she was turning the dial, she was like smiling and then crying and then.
Yeah.
So
with no context other than that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that happened as she was preparing to go up the elevator.
Right.
Or right before. Anyway. So they said, "Pull me out." And then this woman, like, I want to say she's like borderline albino, or at least they make her look like that in this movie. She is a very, very white woman, and she has a very, very light blonde hair. Like again, just like one notch up from albino.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she gets pulled out of this big weird like machine that's around her head. And she's wearing like a hospital gown. And they just kind of pull her out. And then they, it's kind of like a weird, like, "Oh, are you okay?" There was weird surges and stuff. She's like, I'm fine. And then we kind of go to her being interviewed by her handler, I guess, who's Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's fairly famous.
Yeah.
And she's asking her a bunch of questions. Like she opens up this box and there's a bunch of items in it. And she's asking her to like, does this belong to you or not? She's like, "Oh, this is my grandpa's pipe. Oh, this is the butterfly that I mounted. Oh, these other things, I don't know what they are." Really good. Basically just like making sure it's her and no part of her has been lost. Asking a whole bunch of questions about her personal life and who she is, blah, 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 kind of thing. So basically they decide that she is, who she says she is and that she has recovered successfully. And they say that, she's going to go hang out with her husband. She kind of sort of implies that she needs some time off. To where her handler replies like, "I thought you were separated from your husband." She's like, oh, I know, but we still want some time off. And she's like, well, okay, you'll get some time off, but there's a big contract coming up. I need you on this big contract.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. And so then she goes home. I guess she doesn't live there, but it kind of feels like her home, right? But essentially when she's outside, she's like, kind of like retraining herself how to like talk or how to react to like her husband.
Yeah,
and
she's
son.
she's practicing what she's saying. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like practicing how she wants to like react and act with the father and the son, basically like implying that, either she doesn't have emotions or she's somehow suffering some kind of side effects from the work. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So she goes in there and they have like an evening. I think they have like a dinner party. There's like weird kind of awkward sex scene to where she is just like not really into it. And then she kind of forces herself to be into it. Like it still kind of seems like she's not really all there and she's really trying to be there. She's just not really there.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, like the next day, she calls her boss and says, yeah, I'm ready to go back to work. Like,
yep.
I don't need the time off. Let's go back to work. So they're like, okay. So they bring it in. And basically she's like an assassin that she gets, her mind imprinted onto another person. And then she acts through that person kind of like a puppeteer. And then, performs whatever assassination or action that they need to do as that person. And then, you're supposed to like kill yourself as you get pulled out so that there's no evidence.
Right.
So what the new plan is that there's like this big CEO guy. I guess he's kind of like, we'll call him like a Zuckerberg type of thing.
Let's call him a Jeff Bezos.
Okay, yeah, Bezos, yeah, probably better. I was going to say like Zuckerberg if he was human enough to have a child, but I guess Bezos makes more sense. Yes. So yeah, Bezos if he had a child. So let's say he has a child who is dating kind of a scumbag dude. Like scumbag,
nowhere
like,
in life.
Well, yeah, like ex drug dealer, kind of like
in and out of jail,
scumbag type dude. So your super rich daughter is dating this kind of scumbag dude, and the scumbag dude is trying to like get an in with the family. So he says, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll give you a job," and he gives him like the worst job that you can get at his company. So imagine if you're like Facebook and they're like trying to sell you products, right? So they have to like, look at your videos or look at your pictures and see the kind of things you're into so they know to market the correct things at you. So
right.
his job is to essentially watch these videos and then, and the one day that they show him working, he's looking for blinds and drapes. So he's like watching videos, like sometimes porn videos, and he's supposed to focus on the drapes in the pictures.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. Anyway, so she is going to be taking over this guy, and they have this narrative that they have built out to where he's going to be like getting back on drugs, slowly kind of spiraling down.
Yep.
And then he's going to kill the big CEO guy. And so the big CEO guy is the contract that they're being paid to take care of. And then they're using this guy as the tool to do so.
Right. So to kill his girlfriend, the CEO's daughter, the CEO played by Sean Bean,
mm-hmm.
and then the guy.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, the guy is supposed to kill himself on the way out. Right.
Right.
So she like watches them. She's like, they have the house bugged. She's like watching them with the camera from across the street. And you can see she's like doing the same thing she was doing with her family earlier, like repeating things in the tone and the way that they're said.
Enunciation. Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Basically trying to like, become that person or at least act like them because she'll have to act like him for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So then the whole thing happens. They knock the guy out. They bring him in. They wipe his brain or put an implant in his head. They implant her into his body, and then he goes into that world. And kind of the girlfriend notices there's some, like he's being nice And he like
Yeah.
he cares about what she's saying, and she's like, what's wrong with you? So like this guy was probably just an asshole. Like this spiraling thing was probably not out of the question from what it sounds like.
Right.
The guy's kind of a jerk. Anyway, so he goes to work, he watches the drapes and porn and whatever. And then he comes back after a long day. Well, I should say he has an episode at work to where it like he kind of goes out of sync. So she kind of goes out of sync with him to where there's like weird visual stuff happening. To where they
like
show
a speck of goo, essentially. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they show like the two of them kind of like in this weird like picturesque struggle, for a minute. Before she takes back over. I guess I should have said when they do the jump thing over, there's a whole lot of like weird visual stuff, like interesting visual stuff to where they show her like as a, like it looks like a wax figure of her, and then it like melts away. And then it
gets built up as him.
Right. Yeah. And then it like reverse melts into him. It's pretty interesting looking.
It is.
Okay. So anyway, so there, he goes to work, he comes home. He said, "Oh, I worked a double," because she was worried because he came home really late. And then there's like a whole bunch of her friends are there. And they're, he's kind of like trying to be friendly, but like they seem to not particularly like him. Except for like one of them who is kind of like pretty straightforward, but it seems like they know each other. And then later on he goes in the bathroom and she like comes in the bathroom with him.
And goes to the bathroom. Which is something like usually only like couples do. I mean, right.
No thanks. But I mean, I know the couples that do that, right? I've known of couples that do that. But like me, I'm not that kind of person, but like I know other people are, and that's, they're comfortable around their partner enough to just like, pee in front of them, whatever. That's, hey, whatever's your thing, is your thing. But it seems like, and they're like, oh yeah, like, can we be friends again? I talked to Ava, who's the girlfriend, and she said it's okay if we're friends again. So it kind of seems like she's okay with it. Right? Isn't that kind of how it seemed? It was, I don't know. It's kind of,
I thought it was very much implied that they used to do it.
Oh yeah. Yes. Very much so. But again, she talked about, we haven't, connected in a while, but I talked to Ava. She says we can again. Would you like to do that?
Right.
So it sounds like she was like in on this thing. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. There was a kind of a situational thing there to where like she maybe knows and maybe doesn't know. But the way that things happened later, maybe she didn't, or maybe she didn't know the extent of it. I don't know. There's weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
So anyway. So yeah, they end up he has sex with the girlfriend, so like the assassin lady / guy has sex with the girlfriend, and there's like he has like a weird kind of out of body experience while it's happening, to where like he's imagining him or she's imagining herself as the woman.
Yep.
With her, it's a bizarre back and forth. Like again, it feels like they're almost like fighting over the body, kind of sort of.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the morning she wakes up and it's her again. They have her recalibrate. That's what the lady was doing in the beginning, to where like, crying, laughing type of thing, is I guess that's recalibrating the brain.
Yeah.
So anyway, so after that is the dinner party. The dinner party is where the assassination is supposed to happen. So they go there. The Sean Bean is very kind of dickish and dismissive of him.
Yep.
And he just kind of walks away. The handler says like, oh yeah, you got to make a scene and then get kicked out, and then you're going to go back and do it later. That's what our narrative says. So he like pretends to get drunk, and then kind of attacks him, like saying, oh, you owe me an apology. And he basically gets like, escorted off the premises, and they punch him a few times and then just leave him in the front yard. So party winds down. On the way out the door, he also called his girlfriend a bitch multiple times.
Yes.
So yeah, she's angry too. So he leaves. He's hanging out, waits for everybody to leave, and then it's Sean Bean and his girlfriend / daughter. Not his daughter, Sean Bean's daughter / the assassin dude lady's girlfriend.
Because she doesn't want to go home.
Right. She doesn't want to go home. So they're like sitting at the table, like drinking and, kind of like bitching, right? And you can see that like
Yep.
he really doesn't care about her either, and he's very, very bitter about, I guess the wife had left, and they don't have a good relationship. And again, he's drunk and just bitter about the whole thing. And he basically makes her leave too. Like she's upset.
Yeah, you leave like your mom.
Right, yeah. So she's about to walk out of the room, and then he comes in, he puts the gun down, right? And then, like, I don't know. It's just kind of this bizarre thing. Anyway, he beats the shit out of him with a fireplace poker. Or he beats up Sean Bean with this fireplace poker, right? Like, smashes his teeth out with the thing. Like, I don't know. It seems like he's trying to get to his spine through his mouth with it.
And he also gouges his eye out.
Yeah, he literally, like, pops one of his eyes out of his head. I mean, he does not look good. He's, like, gurgling on his own blood. Typical Sean Bean thing to do, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. So the daughter comes in, sees this happening, and attempts to run away. He shoots her in the back a couple times. So she is, he walks out there. She's like kind of crawling along the ground near death. Again, there's another weird scene of them kind of going back and forth, kind of like these psychic flashes, going back and forth, like seems like they're kind of sort of fighting over the body, right?
Yeah.
And then it seems like I don't know. It's unclear who wins, but whoever it is shoots her in the head, and she dies.
Yep.
And then they go back to Sean Bean. It looks like he's dead. He tries to put the gun in his mouth, saying "Pull me out," just like the lady did earlier. Only, there's a big, huge fight back and forth, psychic flash. They don't pull her out. The trigger is not pulled. And, he ends up taking a big piece of glass and then stabbing it into the implant in his head. And then
he has control over his body at that point.
Right. So essentially what happens then is the handler explains that now the person whose body they took over is now back and is the dominant in the body.
Right. She's still stuck in the body.
She's stuck there. Right. And she's like spewing blood out of her mouth. I mean, it's like she is in the bed. Like her body is like spewing blood out of its mouth. Like she is not doing well. And the doctor is there saying like, she's already got permanent damage. Like what is the end game? What are you going to do? And they're like, she needs to stay, right? The job needs to be complete.
Yes. Biggest contract ever.
Right. Yeah. Biggest contract ever. The job needs to be complete. We need to do everything we can to try to get her back. And meanwhile, the guy is now in control. So he's like very, very confused as to what's going on. Like he kind of knows what happened, but he doesn't know, like he knows that he did it, but he doesn't understand that someone else made him do it at this point. So he's like extremely confused. So he's like, kind of wandering the streets covered in blood. He like finds like a Salvation Army and gets a bunch of clothes. There's like these two suited guys that are vaping constantly that are following them. But anyway, so he goes to the girl's house, who is the girl that was at the party. The one that, was peeing in the room with them, that seemed like they knew each other. He goes to her place. And he's like, I need help. Can I stay here? And she's like, no, I'm leaving. Like, I'll be back, and from Chicago in a couple of days. That we can reconnect then. We were going to reconnect then. And he was like, I killed her, I killed her for us so that we could be together. And she's like very confused, like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's again, it's a very weird relationship. So I think like maybe that relationship like meant more to him than it did to her. Maybe that's what was going on. I don't know. But again, obviously his brain is scrambled at this point. So who knows what's the truth? So she finally relents and says, okay, fine. You can stay here while I'm gone because, he says he needs a place to hide. He's like, okay, fine. You can stay here while I'm gone. But I got to go take a shower because I got to go. And so as she's taking a shower, there's a scene where he walks in there with the gun to where the assassin lady, well, Tasia is her name. It's a weird name. I think they call her Tasia Voss is her name. I guess Voss, yeah. Tass is what they call her. So we'll say Tass is in charge at this point. But they don't actually complete that scene. Then like the door knocks. He goes in and answers the door. And it's this guy that was there, like it was like his buddy from work when he was looking at the porn and the drapes.
Yeah.
And he comes in and he's like, oh yeah, Rita called me over to help. Rita was the girl's house that he was in. And she said, you're having some problems. I'm here to help, hey, why don't you go make me a drink? And so he turns around and he shoots him in the back of the head with some kind of weird electric gun.
Like a taser
Yeah,
for
it's
the
like
head.
right. Yeah, it's like a weird taser electric gun. Anyway, so shoots him and then he wakes up and he's essentially like, hooked up again to all these machines. And it finds out that this guy is like the lifeline. This guy works for the company and he's there to like recalibrate everything.
Right.
So he basically recalibrates so that Tass is back in charge. And he says, okay, she kind of freaks out, obviously nobody's right in this situation now. And so he like threatens to kind of shoot the guy, but then, he talks her down. I'm just saying, I'm trying to think of, there's a bunch of things that happen there. I'm trying to think of the order that happens in. Anyway, so talks her down, and then there's like a weird scene to where she's like strangling the guy. Or no, the guy comes in the room and strangles her. And then when she kind of comes out of it, the guy is back in charge and the dude is dead.
Yes.
And then as he's looking around the apartment, he finds that Rita is also dead in the shower. Like he had, when Tass was in charge, she actually shot her. So at this point, she's dead. The other guy's dead. They're like, I don't know, what to do at this point. So because they're kind of sort of like merged at this point, it seems like the dude has some of her memories and knows who her husband and her child is and where their house is. So he goes to the house, and he finds the child out there and kind of sort of, tries to befriend the child. The dad sees this and calls the kid back in the house immediately. Seems like he lurks around until nightfall and then goes to the house, kind of pushes his way in and starts threatening the husband, asking, where Tass is. Because at this point, he doesn't fully understand what's happening. Right. And then as they're going back and forth, again, it goes through another internal struggle to where it's Tass and this guy, kind of fighting back and forth over the body. But then they actually become like two separate beings, and then they actually start talking to each other. But the interesting thing is like when they're talking, they're both talking at the same time, but like one is saying things. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, so they're essentially like, you got to tell me what's going on, or else I'm going to kill your husband. And she's just kind of like pushing him to do it as if she like wants that to happen.
Yeah.
Which is weird, a weird reaction to have there. And then, so while that's happening, the husband kind of, smacks the gun out of his hand, and then they start like wrestling around. So she's kind of like present and watching this, but she's not in control of the body, so there's nothing she can do. And eventually, he just like gets like a cleaver and just like murders the husband, like just chops him up a lot. There's a lot of blood all over the ground. There's lots of chops. Like there's a scene where like half of his hand gets like chopped off, and it's like laying on the ground. Anyway, it's a bad death. And he dies.
Yep.
And then as he's like sitting on the ground, and again, they're like trying to sort of fight over the body, like as the what's going to happen, what's going on, and then that's when the boy, the child, comes in the room. Well, we didn't know he was there, but anyway, the dude gets just stabbed in the neck with like a steak knife. Yeah. Again, it's like a close up of the knife going in, blood just spurting out. He turns and shoots, and it's the son, and he just gets shot dead in the center of the chest.
Yep.
And so like the boy falls down. They're both staring at each other, and like their blood is just like pooling. It's like a ridiculous amount of blood is like pooling out of both of them, and it like intermingles on the ground. And it kind of pulls back in this like interesting scene. Anyway, and then the child says, "Pull me out," in that weird kind of robot voice.
Yep.
And then they die. And then we go back and we see that Jennifer Jason Leigh had been jacked in and had been in the boy's brain. So she was the one that came in here and stabbed him in the neck and killed him. That was like her contract way of closing it out. And then after that, they're able to pull out Taz. And so she comes back more or less whole, as it seems. Because after that, they go into the interview room and they're going back and forth, and she answers all the questions correctly. So even though, they were saying like, oh, she's got permanent brain damage, she's probably going to be lost, lost cause kind of thing. It seems like she comes out of it, not necessarily whole, but at least present, at least as present as she can be. But now she's free because now she doesn't have her husband or her child holding her back. So now she can truly focus on her work. Which is
right, because one of the things is, one of the things in the box was a butterfly that she killed as a kid and put on display.
Mm-hmm.
And she always felt sad about it, but this time she feels no guilt for killing it, and her handler's like very good. That's what her handler wanted this entire time. She viewed her family as a hindrance of being an assassin.
Right. Yeah, but I think she had to choose for herself to get rid of that family.
Correct.
And that she finally did.
Correct.
And so now she's going to be the perfect assassin moving forward.
Yep.
End of movie.
End of movie. I know this wasn't your first time seeing it, but what were your first thoughts? I know you watched it. I mean, it only came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, it was great the first time I saw it. I mean, it was very interesting. When I first started watching it, I didn't realize I would have to pay attention. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of stuff happening. I mean, it's more just like interesting stuff going on. But if you're really not paying attention to this movie, you'll miss a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff, especially like weird implied stuff that's not directly said. You have to pay attention. So like, I mean, I was doing my normal thing when I watch a movie is I usually have a couple of drinks ahead of time, just kind of settle into it. And this one I was like, I had to like sit up like, like, what is happening? So it was interesting enough when that happens. It's rare when a movie is interesting enough for me to care that much. But yeah, it's good. I mean, the way that it's presented is interesting. I mean, it's the kind of weird, I guess that's kind of like his signature. From what I would say, like it started in antiviral, but in this one, it's more like it's got elements of the body horror thing, but it's not like abnormal body horror thing. Is that like David Cronenberg is always like about weird body horror, like
grotesque,
strange things are happening with bodies and multiple bodies merging together, and weird stuff like that is what his stuff is all about. To where like Brandon really seems to like be like, there's body horror, but it's normal bodies. There's a lot of like, knives entering skin and blood, or like you said, needles in under the skin. And the first one that happens a lot, and there's lots of close-ups on it happening.
Right.
So yeah, it seems to be, it's still kind of sort of in that body horror realm. It's just not in the same way, but it seems like most of the weird stuff happening, the body horror that he's focusing on is like, psychological, things happening. These are
close to psychological horror. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like the changes are not physical, as like David Cronenberg, the changes are physical. His changes are more mental. So like the body looks normal, but the changes are mental.
Yeah. And I'd say the only thing that abnormal body horror is like the melding of the faces, like where her face was like half drooped to the side, looked like empty eyes and mouth.
Yeah. Right. I said I kind of glossed over a lot of that because if I try to explain what's happening, you're gonna be like,
hard to explain.
But yeah, there's like, while they're fighting back and forth with the bodies, like what Graveyard talk about is there's a scene where like they show her like that wax version of her, and he like crushes her face and then pulls the face off, and then he puts on her face like a mask.
Yeah.
And then he like relives moments from the movie up until that point wearing the mask, but also as a man wearing a lady mask. So they show this scene of like, her having sex with the husband and not being into it. They show that scene of the dude wearing her face, and then there's like, I mean, it's a weird stuff happening. Again, I left a lot of that stuff out because it's weird to explain it. But if you watch
very
this,
visual.
yeah, if you watch this movie, there is a whole lot of weird stuff happening on in the background. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you'll enjoy it. I loved it, but I don't want to like try to over explain it because it's like dream sequence stuff. You can't really explain dream sequence stuff to any way that makes sense unless you have to. I try not to do it unless I have to.
And the only reason I really brought it up is because that's really the only time of that, but it's also like that's the poster is that face.
Correct. Yeah, the droopy eye with the weird wig. Yeah, that's this scene that we just described.
Right. No, this, like I said, this was your first Brandon Cronenberg movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a bigger Cronenberg fan than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did you after on the rewatch this cement Cronenberg into this style that his dad made, like firmly cement him in there?
Yeah, I don't. Again, you could tell he followed a similar path to get there, but he's definitely got his own style. Like I said, Antiviral, you can really see the difference. You know what I said? There's the one scene that's like it's really heavily David Cronenberg influenced in that scene. But as the movie moves along, I feel like he moves further away from his dad and closer to what his vision is. And in this movie is just pure him. So we're like, there's body horror stuff, but like I said, the body horror is mostly mental, psychological.
Yep.
But there is still a lot of like blood and stabbing and stuff like that. But like the stabbing is like weirdly personal. Like the way he like zooms in on it and you see like the blood, the knife go in and then out and the blood, and they always like do it in like this weird kind of slow motion and they show it multiple times. It's interesting to watch. So yeah, definitely still body horror realm, but definitely his own style.
Yes, he doesn't. No one has a cancer gun.
Correct.
I mean, I think this might be. This is my first thought. This is the realm of technology that we have now. While it is hard for, let's face it, the '80s to really show psychological mind dream sequences as you were describing. So they are able to project it into body horror as a state of being, of mental change, while we can have this weird amalgamation, I think, of all these sequences in today's world, in the 2000s, that it's at that point where we can do it. And as you said, nothing's out of the ordinary. He's not firing a cancer gun. There's no TVs. They're being whipped. There's, this is stuff like that. It's like, it's still medical stuff that you would see like on the news, or not physically see, but like normal stuff. It's not over the top kills and body horror.
Right.
Yeah. So what about highlights for you then for this movie?
Highlights is, again, those weird flash scenes in the middle. They're bizarre. I mean, some of them don't make sense at all, but they're real.
Mm-hmm.
They always grab your attention when they're happening. You're like, what is going on? Like there's like a scene where like like the near albino real version of Tass is like having a vision of having sex with the girlfriend with this like big old dong, right? I mean, it's just bizarre. It's like, what? But again, it just flashes off of that pretty fast. And there's a lot of weird stuff like that going back and forth. Like they're kind of sort of merging and fighting and doing that kind of stuff. Also the interesting thing where they showed them like, her melting away and then him like melting back up. I mean, I thought those were, I mean, a lot of those scenes were really interesting. I really liked seeing all of them.
Yeah. Highlights for me is you're right. This is you have to pay attention. This isn't shut your brain off horror. This is like psychological horror that you really have to pay attention. And as we discussed, and I'll say it on this recording, is I started watching this really late last night, so I fell asleep probably about an hour into the movie. And I woke up this morning and I go, you know what? I don't remember what I saw and what I didn't see. So I had to rewind it and go back to just make sure I caught everything. I think I missed like 5 minutes somewhere in there of that transformation, or the melding of the minds, if you will. But no, overall, I mean, it's something I need to watch again. I don't know why I didn't watch this when it came out, because I remember us discussing this when it came out.
Yeah, because I mean, I watched it like right when it came out because there was like a weird kind of buzz going on around it.
Yeah,
And it sounded really interesting. And then, I watched it, and then I also then realized it was Brandon Cronenberg. I'm like, oh wow. So I mean, but I liked it before I knew it was him. But it's still, it would have made me probably more interested to watch it if I knew it was him. But in any case, I don't remember where I heard it from, but I know that I heard it, and I watched it within like, I don't know, the couple weeks that it came out, because I believe it came out. I would think it went like straight to Hulu or something.
Yeah.
Well, because this was like early pandemic when it came out.
Right. Like I said, I remember one of our other things that we do of gaming and stuff like that you were discussing it. I'm like, I don't know. It slipped my mind. It's always on my list to watch it. And obviously then this Infinity Pool came out, so it gave me the perfect excuse to go see it or watch it again. But no, I mean, highlights. Yeah. The visual effects are great. The story, very, very, very deep. And I think they kind of showed, what I like about his style is they just like he has these ambiguity to technology. Like they don't go into like exact details what this is. They just go, okay, we're gonna drill a hole in this guy's head and put an implant there, and then you sync up. They never really explain what that sync is, that the emotional dial that they go through is, and he just kind of leaves it up to your imagination. It just shows it without explaining it.
Well, see, that's what I've always said is like the sci-fi that is always like makes itself timeless is the kind of stuff they don't fully explain what's happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because like you obviously know there's some technology involved, and this is the end result that you're getting. And they have interesting things about calibrate yourself, and you only have like we did the numbers, and you only have a 3-day time period of what did they say, like compatibility with this person,
right?
So you'll only last 3 days. After that there's damage, and after 5 days the implant will dissolve. So there's a lot of like stuff where you're like, what the hell does that mean? But you don't have to explain it to you. You're like, that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is like, this exists, get over it, here's the story that involves it.
Right. And that's what I like about that. It doesn't have to go into that full detail and depth of it. It doesn't have to. Any of these you don't have to.
Right. But yeah, it's interesting enough to where like, yeah, this exists, but it's not the main focus. We're not focusing on the science of this thing happening. It's just, this exists. It has to exist for the story to just go with it.
Oh yeah. What about low points for you?
Low points? I don't know. I mean, there's not a whole lot. Maybe the one doctor with the weird German accent. He kind of seemed like an asshole, and he also seemed like he couldn't act at the same time. I don't know. It was like kind of like ribbing on her. Like, I don't know. I didn't understand their relationship that they had. Like, he just seemed like kind of a jerk, but I don't know. Whatever. I just didn't like that guy. And I just don't feel like his acting was really good. I mean, literally, I think he has like 4 lines in the whole movie. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
But that guy was off-putting when he was around.
Oh, I guess another highlight also. It's a bad ending. We didn't discuss it. It's a bad ending.
Oh, yeah.
We love bad endings.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Well, again, there's not really anybody to like root for in this movie. It's all just a bunch of bad people. It's like bad things happening to bad people. I think like the only person that's kind of sort of innocent in the whole thing is the girlfriend. I think that's, I mean, and she's not really all that innocent either, but like, because he's just literally like doing coke off of their like snow trip picture. I mean, again, they're not nobody's perfect in this, but I think she's probably the most innocent out of all of them, or maybe Rita. But even they had like a weird, cheating relationship that she may or may not have known about. I don't know. It's a lot of bizarre stuff, but again, those are the best ones. The movies that don't tell you everything and just kind of let you imply something's happening, but not telling you what.
Right.
And that's interesting.
Yeah. My low point is I don't care who it is. No one is allowed to go in and go to the bathroom with me in the bathroom. You wait your damn turn.
Yeah. I mean, again, I said, I'm not into that. I know some people that are. Like, I've seen couples do that. Like, I've been at people's houses and they're like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And like, they'll both go in the bathroom. And like, you hear things happening in there and you're like, they're doing bathroom things. What are they doing in there? Yeah.
Not with guests.
Well, I mean, but it happens. It's weird, but it happens. Some people are cool with it. Some people aren't. I don't know. I'm not. My bathroom time is alone time. Leave me alone in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, yeah, like I said, for my marriage, it's one thing. A friend doing it is completely out of the question.
Right. I mean, yeah, but there's probably more going on there, at least some way. I don't know.
Yeah. I just thought they were going to go and like make out, but no, it was worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So how many needles under the skin out of 10 do you give this movie?
I will give this movie 8.5 needles under the skin out of 10.
8.5, huh?
Yeah.
I was actually going to, I think a 9. It's definitely a rewatch for me, and that's why, you know, I want to rewatch it again fully. I think I need to watch it with the wife as well.
Yeah, again, there's not really body horror. I mean, there's people getting stabbed and lots of blood, but it's not. I don't know. It's not like graphic, I would say.
It's not gruesome.
Yeah, it's more like cinematic. We'll say it like that. It's done for the scene. It's done for the art, not necessarily to gross you out.
Correct. That's absolutely accurate. All right. So with this being only a 3 movie episode, we are going to go ahead and tag team Infinity Pool. I have to say, we did go see Ant-Man, so I watched Ant-Man in the middle of Infinity Pool.
I did watch it all at the same time, so you want me to go with it, and you can jump in when you want?
Yeah.
Right, we can do that.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so we have Alexander Skarsgård, who is Vampire Eric. I mean, obviously he's been in a lot of other things, but that was the first thing I ever saw him in. So that's what I call him. I call him Vampire Eric. Anyway, but he plays a writer. And he's a writer that he wrote a book, and not a lot of people read the book. And he's trying to write a second book and is not having any luck. And I think it's been 6 years since he wrote his first book, and he hasn't even started writing his second book. So he's kind of sort of looking for inspiration. So him and his wife go to this resort in this like fictional country.
I was trying to figure out where in the world this island is supposed to be. My guess is Mediterranean.
I don't know. The only cultural thing they really show is Bollywood dancing.
But they have other cultural stuff there. The Chinese restaurant where they dressed up.
Well, yeah, but the Chinese restaurant was there for the tourists. That wasn't right for them. I'm just saying the only thing that like they have to show their culture was one, they had Bollywood dancing in the regular town, not in the resort. That was in the regular town.
Okay.
And then the way that their language looks, again, it looks like it maybe is somewhere between Thailand and India, is what I'm guessing.
I heard Russian and Greek.
I mean, again, the detective guy is probably like family of like some Nazis that escaped there or something, because he definitely had a German accent, but the rest of the people had like a I don't know. Okay, we'll do equal parts. Thailand, India, Central America, and Germany. That's what it seemed like. Put all those things together, and that's what this fictional world, this fictional like island resort was all about. Anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, they're out there, and his wife is rich, I guess. Like his wife, her dad owns the publishing house that published his first book.
Right.
So she's rich, and he's kind of living off of her, and they go there for inspiration for him to write his second book. And then while they're there, they kind of meet this other couple. And the other couple is Mia Goth, who we've seen in several movies now. She was in X and Pearl.
I like to forget that second one.
Yeah. And so her and her husband, I'll call him Teeth, because he has giant teeth. I mean, it's like you look at his face and you're like, wow, those teeth are big. Anyway, so anyway, he's like foreign. I think he was like Swiss or something. But anyway, that's her husband. So they're like
they're French.
Sure, I think it was like he was Swiss or
so
French.
They met in Paris.
They met in she's from London and they met in Paris, and he's from Switzerland and they met in Paris. So I think whatever, they're both. It doesn't matter. Yeah. They're foreign-ish. And Mia Goth gets to use her natural accent in this one,
which is very off-putting.
Right. Well, because the other movies I've ever seen her in, she always had an American accent, and I had to look up. I'm like, is she English? And she was doing an American accent, or is it the other way around? No, she's English, and she's doing an American accent. So this is her real accent.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they meet up with this other couple, and they find out that Mia Goth, the wife, is actually a fan of his. So it's like the first fan he's ever really met of his book. And she's like very excited to meet him, and they're like, oh, we have to do dinner together. So they go to the Chinese restaurant that you mentioned earlier. And they have dinner together. They go dancing and kind of partying afterwards. And it seems like he's just kind of sort of happy to have a fan or someone that likes him for him.
Right. Oh, right? Yeah. He was very off put when she recognized him.
Right. Yeah. Like he's uncomfortable, but also craving fame at the same time. But anyway. Yeah. So the next day, they invite, Mia Goth and Teeth invite him and his wife to a beach, right? And they say but the beach is off the resort, and they're like, oh, we're not supposed to leave the resort. It's supposed to be extremely dangerous, outside the resort. We should not leave.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, we come here every year. It's totally safe. We'll just go in this little secret beach that we know of. It'll be fine. And so they kind of agree to it, and they're like, fine. They borrow a car from some person in the resort, and they just drive down to this beach. And they're hanging out and drinking and cooking sausages on a frying pan on the beach somehow. I don't know how that was happening, but they were doing it, and they were all having a good time.
I almost expected them to get old.
Right. Right. Yeah, they were all partying. They show his name's James. Alexander Skarsgård's character's name is James. So James goes to take a leak, and as he's taking a leak, Mia Goth comes up behind him and just gives him a surprise hand job, which he is shocked and then overjoyed to receive. And then she just leaves. There's no other real interaction other than that.
Yeah.
So they go back to the car and they keep drinking and having fun. But it seems like he was kind of shocked by that. So he just kind of held back a little bit anyway. So they're all drunk. The wives, they're going to lay down in the back seat and go to sleep. Teeth is going to be in the passenger side, but he's too drunk to drive, even though he drove there. So James is going to drive back.
But he seemed drunk.
He seemed drunk as well. Teeth definitely seemed more drunk. I mean, that is correct.
Yeah.
So they jump in this car and they're driving down the road. And as they're driving down the road, he starts having problems with the headlights where they're kind of blinking on, blinking off, blinking on, blinking off. And this I really, really felt because I had a car that would do that. I had, you know me, for a while I had old cop cars, right? Because they're cheap and they're interesting. So I had a string of them, and one of them had a thing called a lighting control module. It was like a box underneath the dash. And because of the cops, and they have all the wires about their lights and all, and sirens and all that stuff runs through this box. And then when they strip all that stuff out, these control modules like always get messed up. It's like a thing. It's like a thing for cop cars that you have to just replace them because they're toast. Well, you know, they're probably going to go bad anyway. So I'd be driving down the street and my headlights would just go click and just shut off. And what I had to do is I'd have to keep a wrench next to me. And when the headlights would shut off, I'd have to take the wrench and smack the box. And at first, it was just a tap. I just tap it, bink, they come right back on. And then as time goes on and it keeps happening, you have to keep hitting it harder and harder and harder and harder until it got to the point where I would have to pull over on the side of the road and beat the living shit out of this fucking box and to get it to finally turn back on. And then it eventually got to the point where it would just never turn back on. And then you'd have to go get a new one. You can pay someone to like resolder it, or you can just go to a junkyard and find one. Sorry for that tangent, but again, I felt this scene. Like I knew, I know exactly how that feels, and it sucks. Anyway, while he's messing around with this headlight switch, like trying to get this thing to turn back on, somebody runs into the road and he like hits him hard.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, he like hits him. He's probably going like 60.
Yeah. And I just gotta say, interject here. Sorry, at this point, the wife goes, "Oh, I didn't know this was. I know what you did last time."
Right. That's exactly what I was like. Here it goes. Like, this is how it starts. He like, I mean, the windshield is like destroyed. I mean, like, you know, obviously this is bad news. He gets out of the car and looks, and the dude is toast. I mean, legs pointing the wrong way. I mean, again, and once he finally walks over, he seems like his head is like caved in. Like there's no survival here. It's done. And so Teeth gets out of the car and is like, "Oh, well, you know, this is a very, very bad place. You know, we don't want to call the police." He's like, "Well, we can't just like leave him here. We have to call the cops. Like, it was an accident, but like, we have to tell someone." And they're like, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Mia Goth is like, no, like as a woman, like if we get arrested here, we're going to be raped and killed. And, you know, like, you know, we're not doing this. She's like, well, we're just going to go back to the resort and we'll sort this out in the morning. Like we have connections here. We'll do it in the morning. You just need to get back to the resort.
Yeah.
So Teeth gets back behind the wheel and they all drive back to the resort and just leave him there. You know, I've obviously James and his wife are both very uncomfortable with this. But again, Mia Goth and Teeth were very, very insistent that they need to just leave. You know, this is not something they want to be caught up in a local police thing about. So they get home, and they just go like straight to bed. And they're woken up by banging at very, very early in the morning. It seems like it's like dawn hours. And James opens the door and it's the police. And the police grab him and his wife and bring them down to this police station. This police station is like very, very not cool looking. I mean, it's very dark, very like oppressive. I mean, it's just the kind of building you do not want to be in. Like it's bad things happen in this building. And that's you know that just by looking at it.
Right.
So they get, you know, separated, which they're very upset about. And then they drag him into a room, to where, the detective that we alluded to a little earlier comes in with like a German accent, very harsh, authoritative German accent. And he comes in and he's like, okay, the person that you borrowed the car from, is my brother. I would appreciate when I ask you where you got the car from that you say you stole it and you didn't rent it from him. He's like, okay. So he's like, where did you get did you rent the car from him? And he's like, no. He's like, very good. And he's like, continuing on, you were drunk and you ran over this person and then you left the scene of the crime. And he's like, you know, he doesn't know if he should say yes, that this happened or what's going on. And he's like, your wife already agreed to this. He's like, you know, Teeth and Mia Goth already agreed to this. Like, all you need to do is just agree to this and you know, and we move on. He's like, okay. And he's like, okay, so according to our law, because you killed the father, honor dictates that the oldest son of that family now gets to kill you.
Yep.
He's like, well, what? And he's like, well, he's like, in the case of, where the older son is not available to kill, then the state will have to step in and act as the older brother so that the justice is given to the family. But yes, that you will be executed. And he's like, or you can pay this fee and we'll create a double for you. And this double will then be executed in your place. Now, this double will be an exact replica of you and also has to have your memories so that it knows it was guilty of it. Well, because the law is this, that they have to know they're guilty of the crimes they're being killed for. That's their law.
Okay.
If they just killed a mindless, meat doll, that doesn't satisfy their law. Because they're very strict and religious people. In order for them to secure their honor, the person they kill has to know that they are guilty of that crime. That's why they have to have the memories.
Okay.
Anyway, so he's like, okay, just sign here on this paper. We'll make a double of you. The oldest son will kill that double, and you're free to go. As long as you pay the fee.
But you have to watch it. You have to watch it.
Yeah, but you have to watch this happen. You have to be present. Right. And he's like, he's kind of shocked. He just kind of like signs the paper and then is like, okay. And so then they just like, they strip him down. They put a weird condom on his head and they make him step into this like room with a goo on the floor.
A little bit of goo. I was expecting a lot more goo.
Yeah, I was expecting him to like get dunked or something, but no, he just like steps in. It's like ankle deep. And they tell him to hold his hands up, and then they close the door, and then they like hit him with like, I don't know, it looks like CIA MK Ultra mind control or something. There's all kinds of like spinning lights, and
his hands are up the entire time.
Yeah, goofy, weird stuff is happening anyway. And then they cut to him being like tied to this post, wearing like it looks like ceremonial garb with like a big hole in his chest.
Because you got to show off the scars.
Well, yeah. I mean, because he's fucking ripped. I mean, he's fucking shredded. I'll give him that. He did a good job, looking good.
I mean, if I was, I'd do the same thing.
Oh, sure. It'd only take me like 10 years to get there, but sure. But I mean, he's always been shredded. I mean, he was shredded back in True Blood. He's always been a fit guy, but yeah, he's like, I mean, you can definitive abs.
Yeah.
Good job, Alexander Skarsgård. Anyway, so so he like, but like the double is like, begging, like, please don't kill me, like screaming for his wife because the wife is there watching this happen.
Yep.
It's got to be a bizarre experience, right? Anyway, so yeah, he's screaming like, help, help, help. M, who's the wife's name, is like, come and help me. You have to do something. And the kid, the 13-year-old son, walks up and just stabs him a lot. Again, there's a lot of these stabbing scenes in his movies. Like, Brandon Cronenberg is like weirdly obsessed with people being stabbed a lot. He gets stabbed a lot. And then as he dies, the expectation from Alexander Skarsgård, James, is that he should be like horrified at this, right? I mean, this is like watching yourself die. Yeah. He's not. He smiles. Like, this is actually something that he is like into. Right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, wow, like this is interesting. So he goes home. The wife is like packing, like, we need to get out of here immediately. Like, this is over. Let's go. And so he's like packing up and he's like, oh no, I can't find my passport. And he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. So they're like searching, like, we need to get out of here, like right now. And he's like, I don't know what to do.
He does get an urn of ashes of his double.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And it's
weirdly
big. It's weirdly big.
It's huge.
Yeah. If you've ever seen an urn of human ashes, it's not nearly as big as it is in this movie. I don't know if they're trying to make a statement or something, but it's large.
Yeah.
So anyway, they kind of like, I guess, settle down. And the wife is like very, very disturbed. And she's like, this is like disgusting. Like, how, could you watch that? How could we watch that? Like, that's messed up.
And how can you not be disturbed by it? She
Right.
noticed it immediately.
Yeah. She knew something was seriously fucking wrong. And so he's
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't have a passport, so if you want to leave, you can go ahead and leave. I'll figure it out. I'll meet you back at home.
Right.
So like he, like you could tell he was like already starting to like plan to stay or whatever. So he's like, I'm going to go down to the front desk to see if I can figure out something. And so he goes to the front desk, and instead of asking about a passport, he extends his stay by another week and charges it to his wife's account.
Yep.
So he goes back upstairs. The wife knows that he charged this to the account. And just kind of gets upset and then just kind of leaves him to it. And at this point, he's like, he's not really all that upset. But anyway, so Teeth and Mia Goth invite him to come to this party. And so they go to this party, and they find out that everyone at this party has had that same thing happen to them. You find out that Teeth was an architect who was, at building up another resort on the same island. And he was building an infinity pool that had a glass bottom so that you could like see the people inside the pool from underneath. And apparently the bottom fell out and killed 2 workers underneath it. And so they did the same punishment to him. So where he had to watch himself be killed by the older sons of those workers. And then there's other people there. They don't really go into everything that they did. I think the one lady was like sodomy or something, whatever, but they don't really talk about their experience.
Guess who was sodomy?
Yeah. So they're like weirdly like party people, but they remind me of like purge party people, like the party people that are very, very disturbed and like willing to do horrible shit, but doing it in like the debutante, kind of like rich person carefree way. Yeah. Like it's very weird. Anyway, so they're all getting hammered and they're all having a good time. And they decide that, the guy who runs that resort that originally, convicted me of killing those guys, he just won an award yesterday. And we don't like that. We need to take that award back because I need to take my honor back or get my dominance back or something. So they decide that everybody, basically the one guy has connections that can get him a passport, James a passport. And he says that he'll help him get his passport if he helps them go on this mission to get this medal.
Yeah.
So they go, okay. So they all like drunkenly break into this dude's house. And like they capture like this one lady, I think it's like a bodyguard or something. And they break into the dude's room and he's like boning some younger woman. And they drag him out there and it's like his old man donger is hanging out like the whole scene and it's very upsetting.
This is very reminiscent of a Rob Zombie home invasion type thing that's going on at this point.
It's like not pleasant. Like it's like, like this is not good. Anyway, so as they're trying to play a game and like trying to be like, again, it's like a rich person horrible version of like Strangers at this point, where they're like they have everybody tied up, but they're all like drunk and they're raiding his liquor cabinet and continuing to drink, and I mean it's bizarre.
The old in and out.
Yeah. So anyway, so like another bodyguard was apparently hiding the whole time. He comes out and they start shooting at each other. The lady he was boning gets shot and I'm assuming killed. Teeth gets shot in the leg. I mean, there's a whole lot of blood and bad stuff going on. They all get out of the house. And they're escaping and they have to go to the hospital, I guess, for his leg. Anyway, so they do all that and then they kind of flash forward to them. They all got arrested.
Yep.
And they're all in the same room that James was just in when he had to sign the paper about his doubles. So they're all in that room. They all had just signed the paper about the doubles again. And so they're all about to like watch themselves die again. And they're all like kind of, having a good old time about it. Like they're all fine with it. Like this is going to be a great time watching it. Yep. And then the German detective guy comes in with a bunch of other cops and they're like, you know what, we're going to make a point this time, like we're going to, I feel like this offense is bad enough to where we have to make a point. We can't just let it happen the way it's always happened. And so now they're kind of freaking out, like, oh no, they're actually going to kill us. So they bring them all down, but there's like 6 of them, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Whatever. So they chain them all to these like posts and, basically gonna all be killed. And then like James kind of like manages to get away from the cop, and he like, is like trying to like fight his way out and stuff like that. And as they, as he gets his throat slit, they all start clapping, and you find out that those were the doubles that they were following earlier. All the rest of them, the real versions of them, are in their stands watching and laughing and clapping and having a good old time. So like, that happens. They go back, and now they're like in like full like party mode. I think this is when the wife leaves.
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah, so he comes back, like this is where she confronts him, like, yeah, I see you already charged the room for another month, or sorry, not another week, under my name. Like, I'm assuming you just want to stay here and have fun. I'm leaving. I'll be at home whenever you want to come back or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, at this point, they're just kind of like, in like full like hedonist mode. They're like
orgy.
Yeah, they're like doing like this weird like hallucinogenic drug. They're all just like boning each other. I mean, there's these weird flashing scenes of like all this bizarre stuff happening.
6 minutes of like hardcore porn.
Yeah, it's like it goes on for a long time. Yeah, it's like there's like weird colors and everything that's happening, and it like turns bad sometimes, and then it turns back to good, and then it turns bad again, and it's all over the place. And then so like they show like this other morning where they're like all after this orgy, and they're like he's like spitting cherries at like some other guest.
They all seem naked at this other table.
Yeah, they're like all naked. He's like wearing the medal that they stole from the guy the other day. I mean, it's like
and freaky masks.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's a they were all wearing freaky masks when they performed the attack.
Yeah.
Not that
like
really
the old and out. It's the old and out.
Right. And then they were wearing the masks during the orgy too. So it's like, yeah, it's bizarre.
Yes. To say the least.
Yeah. So anyway, at this point, they're like, okay, well, this, we find out what's happening with your passport, because like I talked to my contacts and we should have gotten it by now, but we're not getting it. We found out that it's the cop. That German cop, the detective, is the one that's stopping you from getting your passport. Like, you need to take your dominance back. You need to show them who the man is. That's how it works on this island. Like, they have to be dominated before they'll do anything for you. So they come up with this elaborate plan to where they're going to kidnap the cop, and then they're going to, beat him, torture him, whatever they need to do in order to get him to agree to give him the passport and let him leave.
Right.
So they go on this like, mission. So where like James waits outside and is the lookout, almost gets run over by another police van, but he doesn't do anything.
Just sold out their boss.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then they basically come out with like a hospital bed with a body like covered in a sheet. They throw it in the back of the van and they bring it back to the hotel. And at the hotel, the guy's, wearing his police uniform with a bag over his head. And they convince him he does a whole bunch of drugs, and James gets up and like does this weird, bizarre, like, I don't know, a caveman, like dominance dance. I don't know what the hell that was, but
drugs.
Yeah. He's on a lot of drugs. He's psyching himself up, and then he starts like punching and then beating the shit out of this cop. Right. Just like kicking him, punching him. I think they even brought out like weapons at some point, and they started beating the shit out of him, and then he starts pissing on him,
and then they all piss on him.
Yeah, and then they all start pissing on him, and then they're all laughing and screaming and stuff, and then James pulls the hood off, and it's him.
Mia Goth
pulls the head off, and it's him.
Yep.
And he at this point is like, what the hell is this? He had to
stop.
Yeah, and he's stopped, and it knocked him sober. Like, what? And they're all like, yeah, we thought it would be funny. We thought it would be a funny joke. We paid the cop to make another double of you, and then we
without your consent.
Right. And then we took it to have a good time. And so at this point he was like, wow, like these people are messed up. And so
these are shitty people.
Right. And so he runs away at this point. He goes back to his room. He had the passport the whole time. He hid it because he wanted to stay. So at this point he grabs the passport. He, jumps in the shuttle and tries to go to the airport to leave.
He's noping the fuck out.
Right. He's like, I need to get out of here. Like, this is not cool anymore. So as the bus is driving down the street, all the rest of the party people in their 2 cars pull up next to the car and they're like, come on, James, don't leave. Come on back. We're just messing with you. And, he's like, hiding and ducking and, obviously not stopping. And so then they start shooting at the windows.
Yep.
And so of course the bus stops. They pull the cars in front of the bus. They basically say like, we're going to start killing people unless you come out. And,
the coward James.
Yeah, the coward James needs to come out and confront us. So they go out there and they basically tell him like, yeah, you're the sucker that we, forced into doing this and becoming a part of our group. And like, this is the way that we have our vacation is we pick a person to mess with.
The least likely not rich person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're the person to mess with. And this vacation, it just happens to be you.
You're just a plaything for us.
Yeah. Right. So you come back and you finish our plaything and we'll let you leave when we're done.
Yeah.
And so he kind of freaks out and runs. They shoot a bunch of times and they manage to hit him once in the leg, which slows him down enough.
How far away is he of them at this point in time? Do you really get hit in the leg?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, 1, she obviously didn't know how to shoot that gun. 2,
correct.
It's a handgun and she's blindly shooting into the trees. And 3, the range, there's no way in hell she hit him at that range. It's just not possible.
Right.
Anyway.
Yes.
So he's running through the woods. He comes into a clearing, which is obviously a farm. Of course, it's the farm of the guy that he ran over. So he sees the wife and the child that, killed his double. And as he kind of sees that, he kind of like passes out from blood loss because his whole leg is like covered in blood.
Oh yeah.
So he passes out. He has like weird dreams of like the sun coming in and killing him again by choking him to death.
Ripping his face in half.
Yeah. Bizarre dreams. And then he wakes up and he's actually like alive and okay and kind of tended to. But there's nobody around. And then he opens up the front door of the farm and then headlights turn on and they're all there again. The party people are all there, basically telling him like, okay, this is you have to finish up what we want you to do. You have to kill the dog. And then they bring out the dog and it's his double, like with a dog collar and a leash, but
feral.
Yeah. But like a weird feral version of himself. Right.
Without the memories. Yeah.
Well, no, it's still that same guy, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just another one that they made feral on purpose.
Well, I think because at this point they had him for a couple of days. They probably like tortured the shit out of him for a couple of days and just made him fucked up. But he was also snorting that drug too. So he was in like a weird drug haze of like, orgy colors. And they were like, psychologically berating him, whatever the hell they were doing. Anyway, he made it into a dog. And he says, you have to kill the dog. You have to become the man you were supposed to be. This is how it has to end.
Only be killed with blood.
Right. Yeah. And so they give him a knife and they say you have to stab him. And he throws the knife and says, no, I'm not going to do it. And the dog attacks him anyway. They fight and he basically beats the dog to death with his bare hands.
The face into pulp.
Yeah. They literally show like the skull cracking away and like his eyeball falling out. I mean, it's not pleasant.
No.
So he's, now does that and he kind of like curls into the fetal position. Mia Goth like cradles him like a mother cradles a baby and then like takes the blood from his hand. That was the blood from his double he just beat to death, rubs it around her nipple, and then he starts suckling on the nipple like a baby.
Yes.
I'm guessing to symbolize his rebirth as a new person. A bizarre way to show that.
They alluded to that exact scene in that 10-minute porn montage because there's nipples of blood dripping out of it and people sucking on them too.
Yeah, but they were also like chewing them off and like pulling weird strips of flesh out. Again, I try not to describe dream sequences because they don't make sense when you talk about them. You have to see them to understand what's going on. But yeah, so again, like symbolizing his rebirth, whatever. Then they cut to, they're all in the shuttle bus going back to the airport. And you start,
and they're all normal.
Yeah. And you start to see that their conversation is now going back towards normal stuff. They're talking about like babysitters and the children going back to school and like, cleaning up the house. Right. Yeah. Rearranging the furniture while my husband's at work kind of thing, like going totally back to normal. And you see James in the back of the bus, just like not really getting it. Like you can tell he's not really jiving with this new world that he's in. So he talks to his wife and he says, "Oh yeah, I'll be home soon." And then they all go to the airport and he just like sits in the airport until it closes. Like he just doesn't get on the plane. He doesn't do anything. He just waits till it closes and then he leaves and he goes back to the resort and he sits down, and it's the rainy season. The resort is closed during the rainy season. So he just goes back to the resort, sits in a lawn chair while it starts like pouring like typhoon rain on him. And he just like sits there as if he'd like, that's his new home.
Yes.
Movie over.
Yep. What are your first thoughts on this? I want to hear your take first.
I mean, it was very interesting. I mean, obviously, you think you kind of know what's happening when this double thing happens, right? Because then you're like, okay, well, that's bizarre. I mean, but they even allude to it in the movie. Like one of the guys that was the party people is writing a book about this practice. Because it's apparently the only place in the world that does this. But he also said that he has a lab that's trying to replicate this. Not necessarily this, for this reason, but replicating this cloning tech that they have back in like a real normal lab, and they can't do it. No. So, like, this is the only place in the world that they have this cloning technology, and they're using it to murder people so that rich tourists can go back home after doing horrible things on this island.
Yes.
Which is...
It's how you keep bizarre. Tourism alive.
Yeah.
They say that in the movie.
Yeah, they do. It's like they're doing it for the reason of international tourism. That's period. That's why it exists. But yeah, like you think you kind of know, okay, like I get it, I think. And like, okay, the double thing happens and like he dies and he smiles and then you look and there's still over an hour of movie left.
Yep.
You're like, okay, what the hell else is going to happen? Like I would think that would be like the twist of it, right? No, that's just the beginning of the twist. And then like it starts getting more and more bizarre, and then like, okay, like this is the weird twist. No. It keeps getting more bizarre. And then okay, this is the twist. No. I mean, that keeps going. It's like, what is happening? So yeah, I mean, it really keeps you on your toes. It's really like a weird twisting story that like there's no way in hell you could guess what is going on in this movie without watching it.
Correct.
It's a bizarre story.
You have to pay attention.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention. Yeah, I mean, I the wife was okay watching this one too, but she's like, "Oh, I read the recap and the synopsis and all the stuff." I'm like, I haven't read any of that on purpose. Like, I don't want to know. I want to watch it, and experience it.
Yeah, literally, this one. Sorry, I'm interrupt you for a second. This one I went in totally blind. Yeah, where the only thing that I knew about this movie was one, Brandon Cronenberg directing it, and two, Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth were in it. And I only knew that because I saw the picture that's the poster for the movie, and they're both on it. That was literally I went in totally. I didn't even watch a trailer. I didn't watch any. I had no idea what this movie was about when I went into it. So it was an interesting experience coming from zero into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, this was definitely more drug induce more sexy time, bizarreness, and it body horror. Still relatively, I won't call it normal, but not the weirdness.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he rips open the oldest son's face, and then he gets like ripped in half. But it's very bright and vibrant, and colorful, and more dream sequences. So he went more mental in this as well,
right?
Especially with the whole, the herbal natural drugs that like tree root or whatever it was.
Yeah,
which are supposed to be like the worst trips ever.
Yeah, no thing. I mean, I'm not down with that, but hey, you're down the ground. Right. Have fun, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think because we will, all three of these in a row essentially is he's staying true to a brand. He has a brand.
Oh yeah, no, you can definitely see what his vision is, and it's I mean, bizarre, yes, but I mean his dad is bizarre too, just in a different way.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they definitely both have unique visions, and they definitely both have unique stories to tell. Again, is there similarities? Did they walk the same path a certain distance? Yeah, but there's it definitely branches off, but it's again related but different.
Yeah. So what about highlights for you on this?
I mean, highlights. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things happening in this movie. There's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think of exactly. I don't even know. I mean, the nudity gets old after a while, and like it happens so often that you're also like, whatever. Like, oh, Mia gets naked again.
But I think she's contractually obligated to be naked and everything, just like Eva Green is contractually obligated to be naked.
Eva Green, to her credit, is French, and she is totally fine with it. That's why they do it. It's because she's okay with it, and it's very rare for a major actress to be totally fine with it. So like,
right.
Anyway, most other actresses are like, if you want me to get naked, there's like a $10 million fee.
Right.
Like, how much did Halle Berry make for Swordfish? Do you remember that?
Oh, a lot.
It was millions. And it was one scene of her reading a book. A person comes up and says hello. She puts down the book. You see her breasts for I don't know, maybe 3 seconds. I mean, it is not a lot of time. And that cost the studio millions of dollars just for that.
Yes.
I mean, hey, if you're worth it, do it. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't make that money. I'm just saying that's crazy money for that. But hey, if that's what you're worth, you got your price. Hey, you rock it. Do whatever you need to do. That's cool. I wish I could do that. People would pay me not to do that.
Yeah. I think the first thing I saw Mia Goth in was The Cure for Wellness, and she was naked in that too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's she'll be doing that for a while. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, geez, I mean, again, it's all fun stuff. I would say just the weird, wacky lore of this fictional island.
Yeah,
because there's a lot going on there. I mean, you only get a little bit of it. You only get a little bit of it to understand what is happening and why this is a thing. But it sounds like there's a whole lot of weird stuff going on that island. I would love to know more, but you only get that little bitty taste.
Right. And I agree with that. Especially in all three of these worlds I don't think Cronenberg even does this. His dad it's a one and done type deal. He doesn't go back and revisit it. And there's so much ambiguity even in this that you kind of do want to know more. The appetite is there to know more about this.
Right.
Right. Because when he went into the chamber with the goo, I expected it to cover him completely. In my head, that's what would be done.
Well, yeah, my head, I was like, it's going to fill up the whole room. How long are they going to hold it? Is he going to feel like he's drowning? I mean, because that would be my concern at that time. And so I'm thinking that for him, how long is he going to have to stay underwater? Does he have to not move? Does he just have to hope that they know how long he can hold his breath for? I mean, that's what I was thinking, but I'm also terrified of drowning. So,
well, me too. So we had the same thought.
Probably.
I think it's hard to. I have to separate now Mia Goth from Pearl and anything else at this point now, and it's increasingly hard to do. I'm feeling.
Well, here's how I do it. You ready?
Yeah.
Pearl never happened.
Okay.
Pearl never happened. I never saw Pearl. I don't know what Pearl is. Pearl is, I don't know. I don't know what that is. I saw her in X and I saw her in this, and that's it. I didn't see anything else.
There you go. That works. But like, yeah, you're right about the news, but like the story, the lore is great. Like you felt like you were going on this trip with Skarsgård. You really did.
And to be fair, Brandon Cronenberg is just as kind to the men as he is to the women. Everybody is naked.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? Everyone is naked. There's not like just women naked. No, everybody's naked. I mean, like I said, you get to see old man dong. I mean, you get to see everybody doing everything. It's not like there's no one, like it's not men or women of any,
right. And
orientation
like when
are going to be happy with something.
When they put his hands, like I told him, all right, here, Skarsgård's butt's coming up.
Yeah,
I'm like, I predicted it.
Oh yeah, there's a whole lot of Skarsgård butt. I don't think we got Skarsgård dong though. That was probably too much money. They probably couldn't afford that.
It was close.
Oh, it was extremely close. It was extremely close. I'm not lying about that. They showed us what every other inch of them except for that.
Right.
But yeah, all the other dudes.
Yeah,
you get to see their dongs and everything. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, it's fair. It's fair nudity. It's not one-sided.
It's correct. It's like fair as in Starship Troopers fair.
Right.
The shower scene.
Yeah.
Everybody was naked.
Yeah, everybody's naked. Nobody cares. If everybody's naked all the time, it's not a special thing.
Right. I'll go into my low point, then I'll get into your low point. Mm-hmm. Here's my low point. For it being a psychological thriller, they brought up a point that I thought was a very good point, and they never said anything else about it. Is I know you aren't the double.
Yeah.
And in that type of world, and considering he's passed out for the initial one, that should have been more of a mind trip than what it was, because this is psychological. I felt like there should have been more emphasis on that potential.
Well, I think he probably did, but I think he made the decision to just embrace the life that he has now. And I think that's why he like went over the edge and was like okay with partying and orgying and all that kind of shit, is like he realized that like he could have easily just died and he didn't. And so he needs to try to appreciate what's left. And so I think it probably did scare him that could have been him, or he might have been the double. I just think at this point he doesn't care. He just wants to enjoy what he's got. Whether he's the double or not, it doesn't matter. He feels like him, party.
Now, I read some theories that he is, in fact, double, because every time this happened, he would change. And that's why he stayed at the islands, because he has no ties back to humanity, that his old life, because it's not him.
I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't know the ins and outs and what, if there's any psychological differences between the real people and the hosts. Obviously, that was not explained to us. I mean, is it a maybe? Sure. But I mean, he still knew his wife. You know what I mean? He still called her and said that he was on his way back home.
Right.
I mean, stuff like, so obviously he still had a plan at some point in time of going home.
Right.
I just think he basically, I don't think it matters that he was a double or not. I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I just think it doesn't matter as far as his mind goes. I think it mattered that he felt like a different person, like he was literally reborn, like he was born again, like they literally showed him being born again. And I think the thing in these rich assholes that lets them just turn it off and go back to the regular life, I don't think he has that. And so he could not see himself going back and just pretending like the world is normal. I don't think he could do that. And I think that's why he stayed. Because he didn't think it was fair to him or anybody else that he try to go back and live a normal life when he's not that person anymore. So yeah, he might be a double, but it might be a psychological thing more than a physical thing.
Right.
Like he's a different person.
Right. I think the movie should embrace the whole doubleness of it.
Well, I mean,
Or
that would be
more
a
of
different
question. I think
movie.
right. And that say that's the low point. Is I like that idea, especially as we've discussed sci-fi of, we discussed it in Cronenberg with Brundlefly, is you are literally killed and then put back together. Is it you? You died, right? Teleportation is always going to be you're dead and you're just a copy at this point. And I think that movie could have gone that way. I'd see Infinity Pool 2 where they actually dive into it.
Have you ever seen the movie The
whole double
Prestige?
thing.
The Prestige?
Yes.
Like that movie, I think, goes into that idea a lot more than this movie does, or that a sequel to this movie would do.
But I like that, though. I like that sci-fi part of it.
Well, I mean, there's sci-fi, period. I mean, obviously, this making a double of a person is fictional. Doesn't exist.
Fiction. Right now.
I mean, we could
about low points for you, though?
We could probably make a neat clone of someone with enough practice and shit, but memories, that's a thing we don't have.
Correct.
And we probably won't for a long time.
Yeah. What about low points for you? Is it probably all just the 10-minute straight of nudity?
Low points for me is Mia Goth's scream. Man, God, is that annoying. She was like screaming like Jamesy. It was so freaking annoying. And there was like a whole 5-minute stretch where she was like just screaming over and over and over again. Like, just shut up. I don't know. I think it's just that her normal English accent scream I don't like.
That's fair. That's fair. Any other low points?
No. None that need to be shared, no.
All right. So for you, we'll start with you on this one as well. How many needles on the skin out of 10 would you give this movie?
I will give it a 7.5 needles under the skin out of 10. Yes,
7.5. So obviously, then your favorite is for the week, Possessor.
Yes.
I'm gonna go 7. I liked Antiviral just a little bit more than this, but I definitely need to rewatch this one as well. It's still definitely going to be a watch, I think, again. But I mean, so you're a big Cronenberg fan. So are you enjoying the works of Brandon, and do you want to obviously see more from him and see where he can go?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, it's interesting what he does. Again, it seems to be a body horror, but more in the ways of the body looks normal, but is being changed or messed with in some way internally. In the first one, Antiviral is obviously sickness inside of a person. The second one is literally a person taking over another person. And then the third one is a double of you that is you in every way.
Right.
So again, body horror, but not in the same way as his dad. His dad would be a weird tumor-ridden, merged version of his double, something like that, because that's what he kind of gravitates towards.
Yeah.
To where this one is it feels like a cleaner body horror that's more of the mind than physicality.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, definitely as more stuff comes out, hopefully he continues to make more movies, and we are going to be revisiting more of his dad's work at some point in time as well.
Well, it seems like he's getting bigger names as he goes on, so I think he's getting more buzz as it goes on. So, yeah, hopefully he keeps going. Yeah,
I hope so too. It's I like his style of it. Like I said, it's not gruesome, but it's still body horror.
Yeah, it's more of a cinematic body horror more than a freak you out, gross type of body horror.
Yes. Yep. All right. Um, so yeah, we'll just briefly touch point. For next week, we are going to start a two-parter of a franchise, and it's going to be the Scream franchise because March 10th, Scream 6 comes out, right? So we, in preparation for Scream 6, we are first part going to do what I would call the original trilogy of the Scream franchise. So we'll be discussing Scream 1, 2, and 3 next week. And then the week after that, we're going to go see Scream 6 and be discussing 4, 5, and 6. So, watch out for those episodes. And, we don't like to tell people there's spoilers ahead. And make sure you go see Scream 6 before listening to this so we don't spoil anything, because we don't do spoiler-free reviews of anything. We go into everything that goes into these movies. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. No, you haven't seen what, 5 and 6?
I haven't seen 4, 5, and 6.
Okay, well, these would be all new for you.
Well, the original trilogy I've seen. The second trilogy,
4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, the second one I've not seen at all.
Yeah. So no, I'm definitely pumped. I'm excited. I don't think I've seen a Scream in theaters since Scream 4.
I'm pretty sure I saw Scream 2 in the theater.
Okay.
I don't remember if I saw the first Scream in theater. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I saw Scream 2 because I think we went with a group of friends. Scream 3 I did not. So Scream 2 I think would probably be the last one I saw in the theater.
Okay. That's fun. I'm excited. And I have to say though, that this week's stuff, pretty high range for us.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was definitely higher quality, good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and overall, we're testing out the idea of a new slogan for the entire podcast, is that we watch bad movies so you don't have to. This week was great. I think next 2 weeks are going to be fantastic as well. And we'll see how Cocaine Bear and She Came from the Woods, they come out in VOD, look like for us as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, all right, let's do our outros. Call it.
This is Salem saying, "Long live the new flesh."
And this is Graveyard saying, "Have you checked on the children?" Good night.
Good night.